Welcome to Property Avenue WA, a mixed bag talking WA property. That's what we're all about tonight. A range of topics to which we're going to address. We're just going to have a general chat about a few things, including scams. There's another building company, sadly, up north this time that's got some liquidation issues. So we might just quickly touch on that. The bricklayers and the trades, of course, it's a challenging time getting people to work, but there was an interesting piece in one of the papers about what was going on with the brickies and some pretty shoddy work. So we might just touch on that. Cyclone Seroja, and again touches on building, but I think we need to just keep everybody informed of where that's going. And I did see a little newspaper piece about that as well. Interesting last week where we had Jordan Ralph, our finance broker, who had some really interesting stuff to discuss last week. And we're talking about restrictions perhaps on lending, and no longer we had that discussion. And the next day the boys sent me, both he and Dean Stonehouse, our regulars on our show, sent us a piece about the regulations that have been introduced and restrictions. So we might just touch on that briefly, and a number of other things that we'll do. Pre-Christmas purchase and settlement, is that going to put pressure on the industry even more? We'll have a quick look at that. Of course, Oscar's stats. And talking about Oscar, mate, welcome. Tony Bonner's my name. Your name's Oscar D'Souza. What's happening?
Mate, my name's been Oscar D'Souza for a long time, so I appreciate the welcome, and welcome to viewers, listeners, and any other listeners. But mate, everything's great out my way, as I reported to you off air. Work is good, family is good, health is goodish, I guess. I'm single vaxxed. I've got to get my second vaccination done, which I was meant to actually get done on Saturday, but I was working. I was going to say I got a better offer, but I was working, so I need to get that sorted out. But everything's good out my way, mate. We've got a very, very strong property market here in WA. You probably heard me say that many times this year, but it really is. It's there's no question that we're in a bit of a. I'm not going to say we're in a bubble, but we've certainly got a pretty strong economy. We've got really low interest rates. Employment is good. Probably there's some wage growth as well, which hasn't really been recorded or accounted for. And there's lots of people buying and selling homes. And there's lots of people wanting to rent homes as well. So I'm going to unpack a lot of that pretty soon, I think, in the show. But great to be here as always, mate. Just another busy week in WA real estate. And good to see you too.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, I've been running around like a chook without a head on this week, but that's okay. Some of that's to do with, I'll let you know what that is when we get on to what's on the notice board. But also this week we'll try, if you've got any questions. Now, admittedly, we do this both on a live stream, but also the podcast comes out each Wednesday. Property Avenue WA. So if it is something you prefer to listen to, then watch a couple of silver-haired grey men, then that's the other option you've got available through all your various platforms. So Spotify, iTunes, what else is there? There's a couple of others that you can get access to. And also Buzzsprout. You can go directly to Buzzsprout. If you have a look on our Facebook page and our Twitter page, you'll be able to get access to that through our podcast. Before I do anything, one of my favourite pieces is doing the general advice disclaimer.
I love this bit.
No, you don't. You don't tell. It's the most boring bit of the whole lot.
No, but it's just this one bit that you always trip up over.
I've done well the last few episodes, so don't mess me. General advice disclaimer. The information on this podcast is regarded as general advice. Your personal objectives, needs and financial circumstances were not taken into account when preparing this content. We always advise and recommend you seek, personal, professional and financial advice tailored to your specific individual needs, and we emphasised that with Jordan last week, before making financial property investment decisions. Very, very important in this busy market. Don't get caught out. Make sure you get the right advice. Make sure you get advice to suit you. There's been some really interesting topics in the papers of late about different scenarios, and I think once I do my little trek that I'm doing over the next week, we might try and expand on that a little bit beyond what we've been doing in recent times. There's been some stuff about superannuation investment property, and there's been stuff about self-managed funds, and that includes a lot of investments. So some of that is sort of, we talk about people investing in property. Some of that is sort of conflicting, if you like, with regard to what's been recommended and what's happening in the investment market. So that's something I think we'll follow up through. We'll also do tonight what's on the notice board. That is very, very important. But without further ado, and I've got a great if question tonight too, by the way.
Hey, TV. Before we do the without further ado and the awesome segment you're about to get into, just when you were reading that disclaimer and talking about the fact that, well, what we discussed with Jordan and basically for any of the listeners that are considering a property decision, they don't need to talk to us. They're welcome to, but they don't need to. But definitely get themselves educated, definitely get some independent advice. And an example jumped into my head that happened to me only on Friday, just gone. And that was I was talking to an Eastern States investor that has bought a number of properties over the course of this year because of the property boom that's going on. I think he bought 2 down in Adelaide. He lives in Sydney, probably one up in Brisbane, and then Perth was next on the radar. And I spoke to this guy a few times. He found me on Google, and I spoke to this guy a few times about different areas that he was looking at investing in the Perth metropolitan area, different types of properties, his budget and all that sort of stuff. And from that discussion, I could tell that he was quite a sophisticated, or rather an educated and astute investor. Anyway, he was having a look at this property that was available, but because he's over there and because of border restrictions and COVID, he hasn't actually made it over here to have a look at this property that is for sale. But it was coming close to the time that got a little visitor. It was coming close to the time that offers were closing on this particular property, and he was just going to put in an offer because he's seen the photos, he knew the area, done his research and all that. But in the end, I found a time that I could fit it in to go out there and actually have a look at the property for him, because my background and certainly being a valuer, seeing things in the flesh, being to the property physically, having a look at the area is always the best. It's always the best way to look at a property if that is an option for you. So I offered to do that for him. And he was so close to making an offer before I went and did the site visit. Anyway, I'm trying not to go on for too long, but I went and did the site visit, and I'd say a couple of things. First off the bat, I said to him, mate, don't buy this one. There is many other properties for you to buy in this sort of a price range, and this isn't the one. It was an older home. It had sold a couple of years earlier, and it was just sold for a good price a couple of years earlier bought by someone who just wanted to try and do a bit of a renovation, bit of a refurbishment job, and then just to flick it on at the time that the market's gone up, which is certainly now. But looking at the standard of renovation, looking at the age of the home, the ongoing maintenance, it was not going to be, and this was purely for investment. The guy wasn't wanting to live in it. And if anything, I would have been the property manager of it as well. Just not one that I would have gone for. The floor plan, which you can't tell from the photos on the internet, was a very, very unusual floor plan. The third bedroom, you had to walk from the outside carport through the third bedroom basically to get into the house. That was like the main entrance, but it was still the third bedroom all the same. There was an interesting ceiling renovation job in both the bathroom and on the other side of the wall, the laundry, and it had a much lower ceiling height compared to the rest of the house. Now, you'd never know that from looking at the photos. You'd never know that other than from walking through the house. And there were a few other things as well, but point being, he saw the photos, he spoke to the agent a number of times, he had his finance and everything sorted out, and he was ready to throw his 300 to 350,000 at this property. And it was just by chance that I said, look, I really want to go and look at it for you, because it's a lot of money. It's low budget, but 300 grand's 300 grand. And in the end, he was very grateful that I'd done what I'd done. He'll continue to deal with me. We'll look for other properties for him, but he literally dodged a bullet. And it really made me think about that when you were reading that disclaimer. Just for anyone that's listening, if you're considering a property decision, just get some independent, educated advice from someone, anyone that has got that experience and those qualifications, because it literally is worth its weight in gold. And listening to the relief of this guy on the phone who was back in Sydney, that he didn't spend the money. He was very, very happy that he had someone that could help him out. So that's a big, long story for you, but it's a very relevant example.
Yeah, and I think the fact is too, while we've got border restrictions like we do, and there are no shortage of people from the East Coast looking at buying here in WA, be it investment or be it whatever, then yeah, spot on. I mean, the fact is, whoever it is, you get someone that you can trust, someone you can respect, and someone who's going to do the righty by you. Yeah, totally agree with what we're on about. So it's not just advice of what to buy and where to buy, but it's also in a classic example, as you were just saying now, you can get someone on the ground to help you and support you with that bit of direction, then it could make a difference between buying a shocker and not being the case.
Yeah, well,
I mean, not in all cases everything is obvious either, but sometimes it may still help your cause.
This was a shocker, and the photos really did make the property look a lot better than what it did in the flesh. So I could have been that person in Sydney thinking that I knew the area and thinking I know what I'm buying. And I'm educated in the industry for a long time. But if I was over there in Sydney, I too would want someone to go through and have a look physically, because sometimes the picture doesn't tell the whole story. But always a physical inspection wherever possible. And if it's not possible, find a way to make it possible.
I remember years ago, when I was, and this is like in the late 70s, early 80s, when I was in the bank up in the Pilbara in the northwest, when they were getting people and flying them or coming over and selling them to blocks of land and new developments in Queensland in particular. And they look fantastic. They have these glossy brochures and these glossy photos or whatever. And then people would fly over there later on after they'd done all this. Oh, I must go and have a look at my property. And it was like, when are we going to build on this? And so, the photos and the glossy brochures sometimes can be very deceiving. And
the other thing being is that this investor had spoken to the real estate agent involved and said, look, I'm prepared to make an offer because offers are closing in a couple of days. So I'm prepared to make an offer, but it is going to be subject to me having someone come through to do an inspection. And the agent said, no, he's not going to write up.
Oh, really?
Offer.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's disappointing. Well,
it is. I think, within reason, you can't hold up the property for 2 weeks to complete the inspection. But if you are going to have an offer, if you're serious about it, get all the terms and conditions and price and everything agreed, an inspection within 48 hours or 3 days or whatever it might be, something reasonable. But the agent point blank said, no, I won't be writing up that offer and taking it to my seller. So it put a bit more pressure back on me to find the time to get out there and have a look on behalf of this client before the offer's closed. And as I said, it turned out that he didn't end up putting in an offer, and he really did dodge a bullet with that property.
Yep. Hey, I reckon it's a good opportunity while we're talking about sales and purchases and things. I think we should go straight to OD stats. I like that little smiley face, that photo of yours. That's have you got a bit of growth on there since? Hey, is there a bit of growth happening around there compared to? Hey,
what now?
Changed a bit? Yeah, has that changed a bit?
Yeah, mate. Look,
Oh, look, okay. That's enough. Righto, OD stats, please.
Mate, I'll get straight into the stats because I guess they're quite comparable to what they've been, for the last few weeks. But if anything, they're probably a bit stronger. In the last 7 days, in Perth, there's been 1,024 sales. 1,024 sales just in Perth alone. Like that's a really, really big number. 4 weeks ago, which was much closer to the start of what we call the spring selling season, there was 879 sales. 879 is a big number. Going back a couple of years ago, our normal market produced 500 to 600 sales per week. So at 879, we're well above that. At 1,024, that's actually a 14% increase than 4 weeks ago in terms of the volume of sales. It's a 17% increase in terms of the volumes of sales from this time last year. So we had a spring selling season last year. It was also our first year of COVID. And as at today, we've got 17% more sales in the same week as at today. So it's quite a significant jump. Listings, our listing numbers are still much lower than what we need them to be. Last week, we got down to about 8,200 listings. This week, we're back up to about 8,440 listings, which is good. It's good to see that we're actually got some more properties being listed and providing buyers a bit more choice, but it's by no means a surplus and it's by no means an oversupplied market. We're so far away from that. 12 months ago, though, there was 10,421 listings in the same week last year. So today we have 19% less stock than what we did in this week last year. So again, really, really significant, but consistent with the real estate market conditions in WA that you hear on the news, that you hear from people that are looking to buy at the barbecues or at the kids' sports. And from what the real estate agents say in terms of so many people coming through home opens and multiple offers coming in on properties and properties selling in the first week, that's not agents talking things up. That is literally happening week in, week out in our market at the moment.
Just to interrupt you. So with the situation we've got now, and now the fact that, for example, New South Wales has opened up, and now there's talk that Melbourne's going to be doing the same. Is that going to have a further impact? You think people are going to? We're already getting plenty of interest shown from the East Coast, but is that going to have an impact further and put more pressure on what we've already got?
Mate, I think it will, to the extent that I think that with the way that COVID has changed people's mindsets over there, I think that there will be more people that leave there and look to relocate to WA. I've come across a number of people just in the rental market that have done that. And eventually they'll probably be property buyers. They came over here initially, or rather just as a short-term thing, but now they like it over here. They find good jobs over here, and it's cheaper to live over here as well. So, yeah, I can see there being a greater pressure. Not so much, though, just because Sydney and Melbourne are opening up, because our border still remains shut to them. So, yeah, I don't see any immediate change from there, but certainly I think that we will see a natural migration of a significant percentage of the population over there will be migrating to the West. And I think we've already seen that over the last 18 months.
Well, they won't have a problem getting a job if they've got the right skill set, because there's the amount of, I was up in Geraldton, as you know, last week, and driving around, the number of signs outside businesses seeking staff. I mean, it's when it comes to, and we'll get onto that shortly with a couple of little topics that we'll talk about tonight. But yeah, it'll be employment won't be an issue.
Yeah, and even in the mining sector, though, TV, there's lots of training available and fast, expedited training available for people that don't quite have the skill set that is required for these jobs. So, things have changed quite a bit in that domain. But what certainly is very true is that we've got a labour shortage over here in WA, and it spans across many of our industries, including tourism and hospitality. So, not hard to get a job here in WA. The rental market, again, our rental crisis here in Perth and in WA still continues. In the last 7 days, we've leased only 642 properties. Now, that number historically has been up between 800 to 1,000 every single week, but now we're down to 642. 12 months ago, that figure in the same week was 785. So that number's come down, but as I've mentioned before, it's not because the rental market is slowing down or there's not enough people leasing properties. It's not that at all. It's that we just don't have the supply of properties to meet the demand, and hence there's not that many properties to lease. So it's natural to see that figure actually come down. And looking at the supply side in terms of the figures, right now it's at 2,289 properties through the whole of Perth in terms of the rental. So that's about as low as I've ever seen it. Even when we were up closer to 3,000 properties, we were really at that rental crisis point, and our vacancy rate was sitting right at about 1%. So at 2,289 properties, we're well below the 1% mark, somewhere broadly between probably 0.7 and 1%. And 12 months ago in the same week, we were at that 3,000 mark. In fact, it was 2,974 properties available 12 months ago in the same week. So today we're 23% have less stock available than the same time last year. So that's a really, really big number. And yeah, every single property that I've leased over the last few months, any property I've got advertised at the moment, you get lots of inquiries, you get lots of people viewing, you get several applications, and literally every property I'm leasing at the first home open. It's just whether or not I lease it for more than the asking price. But there's very good quality applications coming through. Finally,
is that pressure? Does that create pressure? Is that a lot of pressure?
It creates pressure for everyone. It creates pressure for the property manager, which is me, because I've got all these applications. I've got all these genuine people that are wanting the property. And as I mentioned, TV, there's not a whole lot of substandard applications and one good one. I can have 10 applications come in and 5 of them can be really, really good. And all of them think that they should get the property. They've got a good standard of application to get the property. They've got good jobs and income and all that sort of stuff. They really should get the property. But as you know, the property can only go to one party. So it creates pressure for property managers. It certainly creates pressure for the tenants themselves. Whether it's a couple or whether it's a family, it's not a pretty picture out there, and it's a really sad, hard, and unfortunate time for being a tenant out there in the marketplace at the moment. I'm grateful that that's not something on my radar at the moment, but there's lots of people that it is on their radar, and it's really, really hard work. Actually, and even more so.
Sorry, keep going. Yes.
Even more so in our friendly town of Geraldton, which, we have a few Geraldton viewers. It's as low as I've ever seen it in Geraldton as well. If you're looking for a property in Geraldton today, you've got a total of 40 to choose from.
No way.
40, like the whole of Geraldton, there is 40 properties, and like you pointed out before, some of them have probably had viewings, got applications on them already. So that 40 today, tomorrow will probably be 38 or 36 or something like that. So that crisis is not just in the Perth metro area; it extends in both directions into regional WA.
I can't remember what Jordan said last week about Karratha, but it was pretty low, wasn't it? But it wasn't that low, I don't think. But
no,
it
wasn't that low.
Mid-40s to high 40s, but I think last week was 47, so we're down to 40. That's getting super low. That's wowee. That's pretty scary.
You look at it on a percentage basis, TV, and if you go from 47 or 48 down to 40, that's another 20% drop.
Yep. That's just
yeah, it's mad, or it's a really somewhere between 15 and 20% drop, which is it's a big concern. And there's just no grassroots for new supply coming onto the market. So I'm seeing so many tenants week in, week out, taking so many inquiries week in, week out for a very, very few number of properties. So not a great landscape out there if you're a tenant. But if you're a landlord and you've been experiencing pain over the last few years, it's now your time in the sun, because you should be doing pretty well out of your rental property. Even without being greedy, you can do well out of your rental property at the moment.
Hey, I'll have that as a bit of a segue to our next little, because tonight's a bit of everything tonight. We've got no set game plan, which is surprising for us, really. But you're talking about that in the rental market. I did sort of go, I wanted to try and get a bit of a feel of what was going on in the regional areas other than Geraldton. And talking to Jordan last week was really intriguing to listen to his thoughts on a number of things. He's a very smart man, our Geordie. But I then found a piece that was done last week in the Pilbara News, where the Shire of Exmouth Workers Camp Scheme amendment approved to ease housing crisis. So Exmouth's accommodation crisis set to ease after a plan to transform more than 20 hectares of land into workers' accommodation, which was endorsed by the state government. And the Shire of Exmouth announced the scheme amendment for 22.2 hectares of land had been endorsed by the Minister for Planning. It will allow businesses and landowners to provide temporary accommodation for workers within service commercial zone bounded by several streets in the Exmouth area. So the site is made up of 134 lots and is located 700 metres southwest of the town centre. So that's one particular process that they're introducing. And then there is another one which was done in Northwest Mining and Civil, open up a new Tom Price Workers Accommodation Village, which is again they are looking at ways of improving the system, if you like, and this was what they did. The Tom Price Construction Company joined forces with two other companies to boost housing availability in the town. Because that's the thing, we talk about employment, but where's everybody going to live?
TV, I'm listening to what you're saying, and I have to be honest. There's this bit of frustration that is sort of coming over the top of me when I'm sitting there thinking it's great now that they've got the green light to have these parcels of land rezoned so that they can have the capability to have some sort of housing on there, but I mean, there's probably a couple more hoops that the local authority or the developers need to jump through in order to actually start construction. And then there's the whole construction period as well. We're 18 months down the track and very fast heading towards 2 years of being in a rental crisis. Somehow our we've got a bit of a mining boom and we've got a jobs boom going on. But imagine how far how much forward we could have been from now economically if we could wound back the clock 12 months and got those approvals 12 months ago or 18 months ago.
What staggers me about all this, and I've had my say on a few occasions, both when I've been on a golf course or when people just simply get into conversation, but what staggers me is the lack of, and I make a point of reading as much as I can and checking out news articles and doing lots of research. There's very, very, very little, if any, conversation or commentary or announcements by the government of the day with regard to the housing issue. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, I totally agree.
It's all about COVID and it's all about our Premier. And there's nothing else. You don't hear very little from anybody else. And you've got an issue don't even wind me up about the health situation, but the scenario with regard to housing. We've been doing this program for 71 episodes, and we did this for a purpose because of business friends and acquaintances who said, "Hey, you guys," and here we are about WA. But it's just staggering that we've been talking about this and a whole range of different topics and different guests, and yet we're talking about the same thing, as you say. And then you pick up an article like this and someone's shown some initiative and gone about and done it. But surely there's got to be, you can't tell me that this can only happen in Tom Price or Exmouth.
And then there's the time delay, like the delay that really the whole rezoning thing. At the end of the day, the rezoning thing is pretty much a decision, a stamp, a change of something on the computer, and I am simplifying it a great deal, but it sits around on people's desks for months and months and months before anything actually happens with it. And yeah, we're literally 18 months down the track now through this COVID crisis, through this rental crisis, and in Exmouth and in Newman and in and in Headland, these other areas where there's been such a shortage of rental accommodation. You've had the corporates come in that need to house their workers somewhere and can afford to pay much higher rent than Jim and Joe Blogs, around the corner, and a landlord sitting there going, well, I can either get $380 a week from Jim and Joe Blogs, or I can get $1,000 or $1,500 a week from BHP or something like that. That's a bit of a no-brainer. Of course, the landlord's going to try and, he's going to get double or triple the rent. But what does that do to Jim and Joe Blogs? Where are they meant to come up with that other money to try and compete? And it's just it's a really, really frustrating thing where so much more could have been done. And it's great that they're finally getting with the program and they're going to build 168 lots and convert it into a workers' camp and all that. That's great. But 12 months ago, guys.
Oh,
at a minimum.
As I said, I'm just sort of getting sick of hearing stats week in, week out, day in, day out about COVID numbers, and how about getting serious about the other issues that are going on behind us. And we've obviously got a passion about property and real estate matters and housing matters. And I think that comes into play. And it's something that we, don't wind me up, as they say. The other point, I think it's good. The other point that's been really of interest of last week, we had Jordan on and we were talking about would there be restrictions, and there was, the Reserve Bank had announced that there would be no increase in interest rates, and they're still sticking to that game plan. But then no longer had we said that, and then the boys, as I said in our introduction, both Dean Stonehouse from Stonehouse Finance and, of course, Jordan Ralph from Mountway Finance, who was our guest last week, both sent me different messages pretty much first thing in the morning, and said, TV, guess, look at this, and both different articles, but all on the same page, that APRA makes a move on home loan buffers. And so the prudential regulator is increasing the minimum interest rate buffer it expects banks to use in serviceability of home loans. And that's what Jordan was saying was occurring. It probably won't, I think he indicated last week, it probably won't create as too much pressure on our WA market because of the affordability of property here in WA. But there are still some restrictions that will impact buyers and the processes they've got to go through. And I suppose it gets back to what we were talking about before, is getting that independent advice and getting educated advice from someone, be it a finance broker or be it your accountant, who then puts you in the right direction, or your bank manager, be it your Jody Bevans, or wherever they may be, to go there and assist you with what's going to work for you before you make a commitment about buying a home. Maybe just check those things first and be prepared, if you like. And particularly if you're a first home buyer, do you think? I think they would be the first ones to do is go and do your homework first before you start shopping for a home.
Yeah, and the other thing, I don't know if you saw, but I think I copied you into it, or I tagged you in it or something. I saw just earlier on today the pressures on first home buyers whether it's a late bloomer, first home buyer, or even a young person, with the prices continuing to go up, before you even get to look at your serviceability and what sort of a mortgage you'll be able to afford, just saving up that initial deposit and stamp duty where you have to pay it as well. It's particularly the deposit though, that relates to the value of the property that you're buying. So if you're trying to save up somewhere between 15 and 20%, and you're buying something for 500,000, well, it's a whole lot more money if you need to buy something for 900 or $1 million, and even more beyond that as well. And in Sydney and Melbourne, you don't really have all that many options to buy something like what you do over here in WA for 300 or 400,000. Like, to get something small and just to get a foot in the door, you're easy talking 500,000 plus, and probably more like 600,000 to 700,000. How long does it take to actually save up the money to get that first payment down in the form of the deposit? So I think it just gets harder and harder.
Yep. And what they're saying is that it's probably going to have a larger impact on investors than owner occupiers. But again, we're talking that influence is more what's going on over the East Coast than what's happening here in WA. And that's what they're trying to shut down a little bit, aren't they? They're going to slow that down because they're concerned about it's becoming, well, it's probably got to a point where a lot of people just simply can't afford to buy a home because it's out of reach.
Yeah.
And if they do borrow, they're going to borrow a lot more money. But
the silly thing is if they're gonna, if it's going to become harder for the investors as opposed to the owner occupiers, and I'm not saying anything against the owner occupiers, but the last thing we want to be doing at the moment is making it harder for investors to buy their investment properties, because we need more rental properties around the country, and certainly in WA, we need more supply of rental properties. So as opposed to providing a disincentive and making it harder for investors to obtain finance to buy their rental properties, we should be going the other way. And that is somehow finding an incentive or making it more attractive for investors to borrow money and buy more investment properties in WA, because we've got a rental crisis and the tenants are crying out for more rental properties. So either the state government needs to supply it themselves, or they need to find a way to encourage investment into the WA investment property market.
Hey, we just got a little thank you from our JB, our Bendigo man. Shorten Community Bank. Yep. He's always happy to provide general advice, he tells me. So there you go. So if you're in that region and you want some direction, JB's the man. And great to in fact, I had one of his staff ring me today or yesterday, and extremely helpful, and couldn't do enough for us to get a couple of little things sorted out for our.
Is JB going to do the Cape to Cape with you?
No, tush.
Sorry. Cat's out of the bag now, mate.
The other thing that I wanted to make mention about scams, and the reason why I wrote this down in my notes during the week was that I've had a couple of phone calls, and then we were driving back from Geraldton, and Jude gets a call, mobile, and because of the nature of the business we're in, we're always getting phone calls from people in different parts, be it over east or wherever they may be, about property things in WA and conveyancing and all that sort of stuff. So she answered the phone because I was driving. And, of course, the phone call was nothing more than the fact of saying that you are being you've got a parcel, and the federal police have picked up on this parcel, and we're in a bit of trouble. So we've got to make a phone call to sort this out. And I went, well, she said, that's not true, is it? I said, that definitely isn't true, sweetheart. So you can forget that phone call. So we shut it off. And then ironically, today there was a reference on the Channel 7 News. More than 1 million Australians have rushed into, oh, no, that's not what it was. Thousands of Australians have fallen victim to a convincing new phone scam. And it's the ACCC, which is the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, flagged the ploy, which sees unsuspecting individuals receive a recorded message, and this was recorded with an American type accent from someone claiming to be an Australian Border Force officer. And there's been something in the vicinity of 4,940 reports of the scam so far. to ACCC, and the financial loss already just with this scam is $121,800.
Wow.
And ironically, I wrote down that I did this. I actually wrote this in my episode notes. I'm not always this well prepared, but every now and then I write things down. And earlier in the week, for whatever reason, and it had something to do with an email I received as well from that I picked up on. But keeping your money and your accounts safe is a priority. And how it came up was that I got an email from a client with all their account details on it.
Oh.
And that is just, I strongly suggest you do not send account details of your banking via email, because there's such a thing. I think we've called it before. They call it
phishing.
And they pick up that and they get your account. They change the account details. They then send an email that looks exactly from you, telling you to put the money in this account. And guess what? It's not the account that you think it is. So, what I would recommend is that, there's phone calls, there's text messages, there's emails. There's a whole range of different scammers out there. When it comes to your banking, make sure you go and talk to your bank and have a chat to them as to, what direction they can give you with your banks and all the different things that are now available and the securities in place. But be aware of the common types of scams, keep your personal details secure, and be cautious of any requests for your personal or financial details. It's so important, because the scams that are going on around the place, and it's Australia-wide and it's prolific at the moment. It has been since about May. I haven't got the latest stats, but it's pretty scary. And it's very hard to decipher sometimes what is real and what's not real.
Yeah, it's and they certainly do prey on the the older generation, TB. There's no question about it. And yeah, my mum got.
Excuse me, be kind.
Didn't you just point blank tell me that they've targeted you 3 or 4 times in the car?
Yeah, but they didn't think I was old. I don't think it was me. Yeah, go on, keep going.
I'm pretty sure they knew you were old, mate, and they probably knew your date of birth, what car you were driving, what your handicap is, and I'm not even talking about golf. But yeah.
Oh, that's another story too. So yeah, go on. It is an issue, and it is something you need to be very, very diligent with. And again, if you've got any concerns or any doubts, then don't do it.
Hang up.
Exactly.
Hang up. Yeah.
And if you've got an email that you're not comfortable with, don't respond to it. Leave it alone. If it's really urgent, if it is your banker, if it is Mr. Bevan at Bendigo who's trying to get in touch with you, he'll get back to you. No stress. So,
yeah, Jody Bevan always gets back to people.
So, we need to be really, really conscious of that. The other thing that I was going to make mention of, and I've lost track now, what was the other thing I was going to make mention of? Oh, yes. Did you see the building industry? We made mention about the building collapse. We've already discussed that, didn't we, up in the northwest? Very, very sad. Did you see that article?
No, mate, you mentioned it to me, but I haven't actually had a chance to look at it. But I think we're probably quite it's very sad, like you say, but it's almost not a surprise. We're just sort of waiting for the news of the next builder that is not able to keep up with their obligations because of the rising costs that they're facing, and then not being able to deliver the projects or the homes or the builds that they're contractually required to do. So, and it's probably not the last one that we'll hear of.
No, and I think it's really sad that, that with regard to that's now one in Albany that we're aware of. Of course, we had Pindan, which was massive. And now you've got this Port Hedland builder who's responsible for key youth infrastructure projects in town. That's collapsed. And they are saying there's something apparently they owe creditors more than $3 million. So it's a big call. And it's again, a lot of that, they've gone into voluntary administration. But the concern with this, and I think I said to you before we started our broadcast, before we went live, I spoke to a mate of mine who's in the cabinet works, does all that and does stonework, and he was saying that, for an example, he did a quote for someone for let's say $4,000, and next minute, before you knew it, the costs all went up, and before you knew it, that cost, that stone top, whatever that he was doing, suddenly $5,200, $5,500.
Yeah.
Shipping costs had gone up, something else had gone up, and suddenly, yeah. And I think you will remember Squizzy Taylor from Warren Taylor Homes, and in Geraldton, he was talking earlier on in the piece, a few episodes ago now, that was the biggest issue, that suddenly they do a quote, get everything organised, and suddenly timber had gone up and steel had gone up and the window frames had gone up in price, and suddenly that puts enormous pressure not just on the builders, but of course those people that are trying to build a home.
I think there was another major one in Perth that went to the administrators within the last month. Wasn't Jackson Home? I probably shouldn't be mentioning names. But yeah, no, it wasn't as big as Pindan, but a pretty significant builder in Perth just 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah. I'm trying to think now. I think you might be on the money there, but let's just be a bit careful. We better check that first before we. But I do recall now you say that there was another that was announced. To what extent? But it's interesting too, isn't it? We say here we are talking about housing, here we are talking about property. You can't get a builder. You can't do this. You can't do that. Hard to get a tradesperson, etc. And yet here we are having significant businesses struggling financially. And I suppose the hard part is that's the costs that they've got to carry, and the issues they're having with increases that can change overnight. So, did you see also the other thing they're having? There was another article I read with the big issue is trying to get is getting the supplies like timber and steel is really, really causing a lot of grief. So that in itself is challenging. There's a lot of challenges going out there in the property market and building in particular. We've created the stimulus, but they are a stimulus, it might be, but I think there'd be a lot of stresses going on there as well.
Yeah, so it's not just materials, TV, it's also the labor force as well. So all the trades, because now the trades, as it happened in the previous mining boom, has got the lure of fantastic incomes and now living conditions by having a FIFO lifestyle. And so why would you take on the hardship of being a trade or having to get out there and get your own work, which shouldn't be hard for good trades at the moment anyway. But yes, there's other job opportunities that are pulling them away from the trades, and they were busy enough without having a shortage of staff in the trade. So it was good. You wouldn't change what the government's done in terms of trying to stimulate the construction sector. But now we're just faced with a few challenges, but they're probably better challenges to have than not actually have any work at all and have no options to generate work or to be able to generate an income. So it's probably the better of the two problems to have. But
then, of course, you see the situation that occurred. You see those terrible photos and those issues with bricklaying that's going on.
Yeah.
And that's the concern. I suppose we'll go one step further, and we refer to Kalbarri in particular and Cyclone Seroja. There was again a reference there about the rebuild threatened by housing shortage. And you have a look at some of these people that are still, and we said this a long time ago. We've been saying this for weeks or months, but and we refer to Squizzy Taylor when we had him on board. So these people are going to be waiting for a damn long time. Less than 50% of the 697 cyclone-related claims have been closed as of last month.
Yeah, right. What was that? Less than 50%?
Less than 50% of the 697 cyclone-related claims have been closed as of last month. And the damage bill was initially pegged at 200 million, but the Insurance Council of Australia spokesman said the figure's now jumped to 303 million.
Wow.
So, yep. Obviously, the Northampton, for example, and the boys, the AFL boys, they've all done their bit. What's his name, Cripps and Kennedy and Harry Taylor and a few of those guys have all got together and done their bit. And I see the Jordan Golf Club, they did a charity day recently with the golf clubs, the women in the area. They do a charity every year, and they present a check to Harry and the boys the other day. They raised some money, but the thing is, the money's great, but of course, when you read an article like this where accommodation is still a squeeze because they can't get the work done that needs to be done. So it's, we need to just keep reminding that. Pardon?
I think it was only yesterday or the day before, or probably last night's news, and they're talking about the upcoming cyclone season over the next couple of months.
Yes,
for the northwest. I mean that's outside of Seroja and everything. It's just the nature of what happens in cyclone season in this time of the year. And basically to prepare for possibly a stronger cyclone season than normal because of the warmer weather that's expected. So, that's not, we're not really anticipating that there's going to be a whole lot of cyclone or cyclonic action through the Midwest again. It's normally, it normally stays up in the north, but Seroja did happen. It's you can't sort of bury your head in the sand, and for certainly those people that are affected by it, they couldn't bury their head in the sand if they tried.
You've got to. I mean, it's a very challenging time, and you don't. You wish everybody in all those cyclone affected areas, Perendry and Mininu, places like that, where have been probably a little bit, don't get quite the profile as perhaps what Kalbarri has. But that being said, you've got to love this little bit. I like this, where one of the families had been, this is in Kalbarri, been promised their upstairs living area will be rebuilt by Christmas. But the particular proprietor, I won't mention his name, although it is in the paper, will believe it when he sees it. He said they said Christmas, but they didn't specify which year. So I've still got a sense of humour, which is lovely. But we just hope that that things come to fruition and they get back to some sort of normality with their homes sooner rather than later. But we'll wait and see. Hey, just talking about building again, and just a quick snippet. This is probably more as much about property headlines as anything else. But we'll keep that to property headlines. We'll go there. What are we going to do next?
Have you checked the time, mate? Do you know what time it is?
No, I've got no idea, mate. I don't have a watch. Yes, I do. Hey, listen, we'll quickly go to what's on the notice board, your favourite segment. Let's go. When I find it. Where are we? What are we doing? Does anybody know? What am I doing? What's on the notice board? There we go.
What's on the notice board?
Well, what's on the notice board? This is all quirky, anything different. If you've got something that you want to announce or you want to talk about, or you, be it the kids' school fete, be it a sports day, be it the golf club event, doesn't matter where you are, who you are, it's a WA-focused thing. There might be a special birthday, then let us know. Send it in to us and we'll make mention of it on our podcast and our live stream. But I can tell you this week what's on the notice board. There's a couple of interesting things. One is today, when I find my page.
You're so organised.
No, I'm not. I've been really under pressure today. So today is Old Farmers Day. Did you know that?
Is what?
It's Old Farmers Day.
Yeah, I knew that.
So the Old Farmers Day is all about our society was built upon the rugged shoulders and stubborn personalities of farmers from around the world. So it only makes sense that we celebrate their contribution and all they have provided, and hence Old Farmers Day intends to do just that. Celebrating Old Farmers Day can take on a few different forms. So there you go. I knew you'd be excited. I can tell. Hey, listen, mate, if it wasn't for the farmers, mate, where would we be? It's also Own Business Day. Now, that's you and I.
Yes.
I knew you'd get excited. And also, it's World Arthritis Day. You excited?
Mate, I'm sick and tired, and I think there is, I don't know who it is that just is, and I'm not suggesting it's you, but this year something's happened this year, and every day is just World Cucumber Day and World Payment Day and World
stop being a
Arthritis Day.
boring. Liven up, you sook, and just enjoy it for what it is, and have a bit of a laugh. You, geez,
I love World Arthritis Day.
Yes, well, if you don't like that day, just find some other day that you like. You sook.
Oh, well, I like World Arthritis Day. Yeah, no.
Well, I think you'd like this day better. On Thursday, 14th of October.
It's World.
It's World. It's Dessert Day.
Oh, World Dessert Day. Oh, well, that's what day is that on Thursday?
It's not World Dessert Day. It's just Dessert Day.
Right? On Thursday.
Thursday, 14th of October.
You know, the most amazing thing about that is it's just a coincidence that 2 days early is my favourite day of the year, which is World Arthritis Day.
And you know what else is on? I'll tell you what else is on. What's on the notice board? Property Avenue WA is going to do Cape to Cape. And so next week, we will try and do a segment if we can get connection, and we'll try and do a little. It might not be going on as long as we are now, but we'll report in from wherever we will be. We're doing the Cape to Cape track. So as of tomorrow, jumping in the car, loaded up, cooked all the dinner. We got more food. I reckon we'll be able to feed just about everybody else that's on the Cape to Cape track. I reckon the amount of food I've cooked up. But we've got the old spag happening. We've got a bit of beef strog happening. We've got some curried snags. We're so organised. We might just have a feast. And so we're heading off tomorrow. A mate of mine, J.K. Forrester, is heading down from Geraldton tomorrow. And we're heading to Gracetown. And then we're getting back up to wherever we're going. So I think we start up Margaret River Way. And then we're 125 kilometres we're doing over the next 6 days.
That's brilliant.
We'll post a few photos and keep you informed of what's going on. And we will talk Property Avenue WA from wherever we will be on the Cape to Cape track next Tuesday. So watch this space. Keep you informed.
Fantastic.
So that's that. Hello, we've got a couple of comments. Let's just quickly look. Jody Bevan wants to know, when can I look up when Old Bankers Day is, please?
Old Bankers Day.
I'll have to have a look at that one. And someone else has made comment about my food and said yummy. I think she's related to me. Might be my wife. And she didn't cook it either. I did the cooking. Thank you.
Yeah.
I did. We won't worry about property headlines because we've pretty much covered property headlines. Although I will make mention of one little headline, and that is to do with robotic bricklaying. Did you see that?
Yes.
There's a robotic bricklayer. Where is it? Robot bricklaying. Robot brick firm. They've won their first multi-home contract. Fast Brick Robotics, with plans to use this new technology on a $5 million property development in St James. Some of the bricklayers dismiss it as a unicorn that will never make a serious impact on the sector. But then again, if you have a look at some of the sloppy brickwork by non-bricklayers and the issues we've got at the moment, I'm sure. I'm a big one for the real bricklayer, but certainly when it comes to technology, and if it's going to help our industry and it's going to help people with their building, then for me, I think it's a great little thing. So there's a little headline, but I don't think we worry about too many more headlines tonight. Okay, the other thing we'll do, I think we're just about wound up for the night. We didn't have any questions, but that's okay. And the other question,
maybe JB's got a question for us.
You reckon? JB's got a question.
Ask us a question, JB.
Yeah, ask us a question. No, there's someone made a comment. Will the opening of New South Wales and Victor create? No, that's not it. That's us. Where is it? I don't even know what I'm doing now. Righto, that'll do.
Reading your own comments.
I did. Now I've got an if question for you. Are you ready?
Can't wait.
I love that little tune. I reckon that's just it. People just glamour.
You make me laugh.
The if question is, if you could get a ticket to any show or event That's if you can get a plane out of here for starters. But if you could get a ticket to any show or event, what would your ticket of choice be? There you go.
Any show or event? Oh, mate, I think you've stumped me. Any
Really?
show or event? I'm a bit stumped, mate. I'm a bit stumped.
Oh, come on. Come up.
Well, I can't think whether it's sporting.
There's no right or wrong with this answer. You know that, don't you?
Do they still do what's a really massive music festival like Woodstock?
Yeah, okay.
Something like
How hard is it?
Woodstock.
Like go and watch a Deep Purple concert or something, or what? Or go to a Wembley Stadium and watch a soccer game. Wouldn't you do that?
Oh yeah, that sort of stuff. I'm thinking
Oh,
sport. Yeah,
please. Would you go to the Melbourne Cup?
I'd probably
the Melbourne Cup. Would you go to the Melbourne Cup?
Nah, not really. But yeah, maybe go over and watch the US Open.
Yeah, well there you go.
Yeah.
What, tennis or golf?
No, the golf. Golf.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
What about you, mate?
I was wondering if you're going to ask me.
What about you, TV?
My choice would be the Olympic Games, and I'd want to be there for the opening ceremony, and I'd want to be there for the athletics, in particular the 100 meters, and I'd probably go to hockey because that's where I have a passion. But I certainly wanted to see the athletics, and I'd love to be there for the swimming finals, the different swimming finals events. Never been to an Olympics. I can now say that I've been to a grand final in WA, but Olympic Games overseas, that would be my choice. Maybe Olympic Games, where would I like to go? Maybe I would like to go to Japan.
Gold Coast.
No.
Okay.
I'd like to do one overseas. Overseas.
Right.
I think a home one would be pretty good, but mate, I think we should call it squits. I think we've or quits is the word. I think we've done very, very well. And I'm going to start packing because I'm heading off tomorrow. I've got a long walk ahead. So
a drive and a walk.
Yep. So look forward to talking to you again next week. Have a good week. For all those people that are listening, watching, thank you. Please let people know that we exist, and our podcast comes out tomorrow. So take care. Have a good week, and see you all again talking WA property next week. Cheers for now. I've got to find this now. Hang on. Jeez, I'm going well, aren't I?
And on Friday,